Wrestling with the Past, hosted by Jason Nupp. Join Jason as he reviews classic wrestling footage from the golden era of the WWF, when our biggest childhood fear was anyone from the dreaded Heenan family capturing the precious World Wrestling Federation gold from our red and yellow savior, Hulk Hogan. There were Rowdy Pipers, Snookas who superflied, animals with green tongues, Russian Volkovs, Sheiks of Iron, a demolition that could axe and smash things to bits. It was a glorious time to be alive. It was a time to rock and wrestle, when a video coliseum fulfilled our childhood world with excitement and wonder. And now, the host of Wrestling with the Past, give it up, give it up, give it up for Mr. Jason Nupp.
What's up, guys? Jason Nupp, New Age Revolution, down here in the cave for another episode of Wrestling with the Past. That's right, I put it together in my head how I want to do this. I figure that I can put a lot of effort into talking about a fairly large period of time, right? So for now, the Wrestling with the Past reviewing the year 1984 in the WWF will be done in 6-month increments. For now. We might cut it down to monthly, right? But I've been watching along. I mean, we started the show, a while back, and I was reviewing the January episodes of Championship Wrestling and the house shows, and then it's so involved and there's so much to do, and I have to come down here and watch it, and I really, I take advantage of like late at night when everybody's asleep, and I just, hop on the couch and watch an hour of wrestling. And, I'm just not set up to come down here. So I have found myself entering June of 1984. And so I decided, well, let me recap 1985. Let me recap the first 5 months of WWF 1984. And I think we'll do it monthly. So I think, after I'm done with June, I'll recap June for you. And then July and August. So we'll do it monthly, but to start it off, it's going to be January to May 1984. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff is happening. And it's so fun to go back and watch. So January of 1984 saw the WWF go in a completely opposite direction that they were in 1983 and previous. They really, really set the table for the cartoony, super marketing, superhero, really worldwide expansion. You could see it. It was coming. And the first big move that Vince McMahon made was to take the belt off of Bob Backlund, who was a traditional early 80s, 70s world champion. Good guy world champion. Very clean-cut babyface, amateur style wrestling, scientific wrestler, if you will. And, Bob Backlund held the belt for like 6 years, which in today's world would be unheard of, to pin an entire company on the back of one guy for 6 years. And the crowd did start to grow up too. Not grow up, grow out. The crowd started to grow out of, wrestling of the early 80s. The style of wrestling in the early 80s. Bob Backlund's style anyways, because there were some matches in late 83 where he was being booed. And, the crowd was starting to turn against the babyface Howdy Doody that, who named him Howdy Doody? Oh, maybe Iron Sheik? I don't know, but you started to see it. So anyway, what do? They put the belt on a transitional champion, the Iron Sheik, And that was, of course, just the big setup for Hulkamania to be born. 1 month later, Madison Square Garden, Hulk Hogan defeats the Iron Sheik, January 23rd, I think it is, 1984, in just a classically beautiful moment. I mean, it's only a 5-minute match, right? Like 5 minutes and some change. And if you've seen it enough times, you know how you can like lip sync a song? You can kind of lip sync the match. Like you know that Sheik attacks Hogan before the bell and wraps the thing around his neck and then clothesline. It's Sheik has him in the camel clutch. Hogan powers out, backs him up into the turnbuckle. Hogan reacts, Sheik reacts, and then it's on. Entering the WWF at this time, around this time, Paul Orndorff and Dr. D. David Schultz. Now, they are affiliated, they are managed by Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper comes in as a manager first, and some of the rumors, is that he was still recovering from the dog collar match where he had like a busted eardrum, and he was still recovering. And so when he came in, he was a manager. And he was managing Paul Orndorff and Dr. D. David Schultz. They were establishing themselves as like two main bad guys in January of '84. So was Masked Superstar. Masked Superstar was coming in as one of the main bad guys. And in fact, Hogan took on Paul Orndorff and Masked Superstar in 2 of his first ever title defenses. Bob Backlund is still hanging around. He's still he's messing around with the Samoans. He's I think he took on Mr. Fuji at a televised house show. He had I think there was a couple of return matches with the Iron Sheik. He had a count out loss to Greg Valentine on a televised house show. Because Greg Valentine, well, he's not here yet. Hang on. Greg Valentine comes in late February, March. So the Tonga Kid is jobbing in 1983 and slightly less than jobbing in January 1984. And he has absolutely no affiliation with Jimmy Snuka at this point. They don't mention him with Snuka. Nothing. So he's Tonga Kid, and he's losing. He's a jobber. Apparently, and I have not seen them, Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch are in the WWF in January of 1984, but they are nowhere to be found. I do not see them anywhere. They're not mentioned. They're not there. But they are there because they're becoming the number one contenders to the tag team title. I don't see them anywhere on TV. Now, there is a show in this period of time called Wrestling at the Chase, WWF Wrestling at the Chase. And I do not have any episodes of that, but it is apparently a very high-level television show. It is not house show material, but it is a good, competitive matches on a 1-hour TV show, I believe. Wrestling at the Chase. And apparently Murdoch and Adonis show up on there. There's like, great main events. Brian Blair and Paul Orndorff have like a 20-minute main event match on Wrestling with the Chase. And Roddy Piper starts to introduce Piper's Pit to us. After Rogers Corner thankfully ended in '83, there was a show called Victory Corner, which was really the editor of Victory magazine, which lasted like 2 issues and 2 episodes. And then Roddy Piper was a guest on Victory Corner and basically tossed him out and said, we're going to do Piper's Pit. February, Tito Santana becomes the Intercontinental Champion, defeating Don Morocco in Boston. And there is little footage of that. There's like ringside cam footage of that title win, which is surprising because Boston Garden house shows were being televised at the time. But Tito Santana defeats Don Morocco, who then disappears for a while. Don Morocco is gone, and I don't know for how long. So far, he's not back in June But Don Morocco takes off from the WWF quietly after losing the Intercontinental title to Tito Santana. As I mentioned before, Brian Blair is in the WWF at this time, B. Brian Blair, and he's going by B. Brian Blair. He's from Florida, very good friends with Paul Orndorff, apparently, very good friends with Hulk Hogan, apparently. And he's kind of a, he's a lower mid-card guy. He incredible matches. I mean, there was a great match between him and Orndorff, like I said, at Wrestling at the Chase. Piper is starting to wrestle. Piper is wrestling in tag team matches, usually teaming with Dr. D or Orndorff, or all three. And he's having those, so he's having some quick television matches, but then he's having those house show 6-man matches where he's taken on, there was one match where he took on Rocky Johnson, Bobo Brazil, and SD Jones, right? So that was like the big match of the time, the big 6-man throw everybody together match. And those three guys were not shy to talk about the race of the men they were facing. Different time, 1984, you could really get some bad guy heat by talking about the culture and race of either black or Asian wrestlers or whoever, Hispanic wrestlers, like anything went. And Dr. D. David Schultz and Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper were pretty good at that. There was a lot of stuff going, a lot of innuendo and not so much racial innuendo, just flat out blah. All right, Hogan takes on Orndorff in February. Like I said, that is one of his first either MSG or Philly title defenses. And Sergeant Slaughter, we see Sergeant Slaughter begin a subtle and a pretty drawn out face turn. He is starting to take offense to all the anti-U.S. stuff. Here we are in the middle of the Cold War, 1984. Statue of Liberty getting, the remodel. So it's kind of hard for, Sergeant Slaughter to stay a bad guy. And you see it coming. He makes a few mistakes when he's teaming with Mr. Fuji and or Tiger Chung Lee. And they kind of get mad at him, and there's some pushing and shoving, and then Slaughter's being cheered by the fans, but he doesn't know what to do, and he doesn't quite trust the good guys, in these matches. It's cool. Like you can see it coming. It's subtle, but something's happening. All right, that's February 1984. Right. So that brings us into March 1984, of course. Now, this was something that I had no idea happened until it wasn't even, as I watched through March 1984, this whole thing was never even spoken about. I only stumbled upon it when I was looking up a house show result of a show that wasn't aired. And in early March, Akira Maeda, who we have heard of, defeated a guy named Pierre, and I never know how to pronounce this last name, but it's Lefebre. Pierre, I know that you're not going to pronounce all the letters in that one. So Lefebvre, maybe? Pierre, someone or somebody. Anyway, Maeda defeated this fella to quietly win the international title. The WWF International title. One of those belts that, the WWF had a junior heavyweight champion. Tiger Mask was that champion. And now in March of 84, Akira Maeda becomes the international champion. And it's never mentioned on WWF TV. Now, however, during March and April, Akira Maeda is jobbing on WWF television and at a house show. So, they've got him. They give him this international title, and then they're jobbing him on TV in non-competitive matches. He gets barely any offense. Very strange. We finally see Piper's Pit ramping up in March, and there are a couple of classic Piper's Pits. that I have seen so far. One with Andre the Giant, and you should go back and look for it on the tube. It's pretty cool. It's a very, very early Piper's Pit, and it leads to some Andre the Giant versus Roddy Piper matches where Roddy actually gets a lot of offense and damage in on the Giant. But this is the Piper's Pit where, Roddy basically says that he's not afraid of him, and that Big John Studd is the true Giant or whatever. And Andre really works him over. He grabs him by the shirt, and he's really you could tell like Andre was a little stiff, and Piper's trying to get the shirt off as Andre has him, and Piper gets the shirt off finally, and Andre kind of jerks the shirt, and Piper trips over a table, and it was great. It looked really, really intense. Really intense. And then the classic Piper's Pit with Frankie Williams, the lovable jobber, where Piper interviews him and basically says, you've never won a match, and I think you're garbage. And Frankie Williams, the beautiful, most classic line in Piper's Pit history, Frankie Williams says, I may not win, but I'm always in there. And he's got this horrible broken English. And he says, I don't run from nobody. And Roddy Piper thinks he said, you got no room for nobody, which doesn't make any sense. So Frankie Williams goes, I don't run from nobody. And Piper goes, yeah, I know, you got no room for nobody. And it's like, no, that was so great. Frankie Williams gets this great line. Piper doesn't understand it, comes up with a totally disconnected line, and then beats the tar out of him. Beats up Frankie Williams, gives him a vicious knee. Frankie Williams is sitting in the chair. Piper hits him with a nasty knee. Frankie Williams comes off camera, then comes back for more, and Piper pummels him and throws him off the stage. And then he gives the classic, either the, just when you think you have all the answers, I change the questions, or you don't throw rocks at a guy with a machine gun. I've talked about this before, and it definitely leads to some disagreement, but I hate Roddy Piper, the promo guy. Okay, I met Roddy Piper once. He was the sweetest guy, super fan friendly, but I do not see the hype. I can't stand the promos, and everybody loves him for his interviews, and I just think they're rambling garble that doesn't make any sense, and he shoots off these one-liners and then drops the mic and walks off stage, boom, like I just crushed you with this one-liner. And they're so dumb. They're bad. Anyway, I've said it before. I know you disagree. Greg Valentine is in the house. Greg Valentine is showing up with this beautiful purple robe with the hearts on it, and of course Captain Lou, who's pretty much like the only manager that we see in the WWF. We got Freddie Blassie. Blassie is with Iron Sheik only, and anybody new that comes in, and I'll mention a few people coming in, but anybody new that comes in automatically goes with Albano. Buzz Sawyer. Let me see if Buzz Sawyer comes in and he's with Albano, and Valentine's with Albano, and when George Steele starts to come back and forth, he's with Albano. And Lord Alfred Hayes is also getting a ton of airtime. He is now here in the WWF full time, and we start to see Lord Alfred make some TV appearances. A very interesting matchup, or series of matchups, two matchups. For some reason, the WWF, Vince McMahon, was promoting Jose Luis Rivera as undefeated on television in March. And this is very, 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 very horribly untrue. Jose Luis Rivera was not undefeated on television. A couple of weeks prior, Jose Luis Rivera defeated a fellow jobber in a weird. Sometimes Championship Wrestling would put these weird jobber versus jobber matches. So he had won 2 weeks ago, and apparently Vince McMahon forgot about the 35 other losses that Jose Luis Rivera had on TV up to that point, and identified him as undefeated, and sold his match with Greg Valentine as a main event on Championship Wrestling. It's no contest. Greg Valentine defeats him soundly, and there goes the unbeaten record of Jose Luis Rivera. Rivera comes back a couple of weeks later to avenge his one loss and is crushed again by Greg Valentine. Very, very strange. Very strange. All right, April, we see the finally, around May into April, we've got March. We've got the full-on Sergeant Slaughter face turn. It's happened. He's a face in one of the most beautiful, classic angles of all time. Iron Sheik just defeats a guy. Sergeant Slaughter's coming to the ring, and neither man will get out of the other one's way. And Sheik is saying, "Get out of the way," and Freddie Blassie is saying, "Get out of the way," and Sergeant Slaughter is saying, "Get out of the way," and that's it. That began the feud. And now Sergeant Slaughter is full on Pledge of Allegiance in the ring. All of his promos are about the military and the country, and they're. I can't watch a Sergeant Slaughter promo because he spits all over the place, and I get super grossed out by that. And Sergeant Slaughter has a mouthful of thick, gross saliva during these promos, so I keep my eyes closed during them. But the Slaughter Sheik feud is on, and they have some incredible matches. They first start out around April with standard matches, Sheik versus Slaughter, and then Slaughter is usually bloodied up in these matches with Sheik's boot, and then the boot camp matches start, and they are incredible. The boot camp matches, Iron Sheik is a fantastic seller. If you want to watch some bumping, Iron Sheik, I don't care how crazy he is today, or how he threw himself around that ring when he was supposed to, and he did so for Sergeant Slaughter. And the awesome part about those matches, the boot camp matches, is there's double blood. Both Slaughter and Sheik bleed, but the good thing about Sheik bleeding, so one, Sheik has no hair, so the blood goes all down the back of the head and looks awesome. It's splattered all over. Second thing is Sheik is a major sweater, right? He sweats a ton. So all the sweat and the blood get mixed together, and it looks like a horror movie. Very, very, very convincing, hammering the point home in these boot camp matches. They are awesome. They go around the horn, as they say, with the boot camp matches. All the major house shows, televised house shows, had the boot camp match. In a strange situation, we see NWA manager, future manager of the Four Horsemen. He was currently managing Tully Blanchard, or Ron Bass at the time in the NWA. J.J. Dillon shows up at Madison Square Garden. Second or third match of the card, takes on Tito Santana. Not the most back and forth match. Decent back and forth match. Tito obviously gets the win. J.J. Dillon's one and only appearance in the WWF. I don't know the backstory on it. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. J.J. Dillon lost to Tito Santana in April of '84. In kind of an angle that I remember so much as a kid, Terry Daniels, Private Terry Daniels, joins the Cobra Corps and teams up with Sergeant Slaughter, and basically he's the flag carrier. He's accompanying Slaughter to the ring, and he wrestles a bit, and he for a little while, for 6 to 8 month period, he was, getting some wins on television against undercard talent. And then he became undercard talent. But yeah, Private Terry Daniels has joined Sergeant Slaughter, and he is part of the Cobra Corps. And in an awesome angle that I very, very, very much remember from childhood, Slaughter's wrestling. And in fact, Sergeant Slaughter's taking on a guy named Lanny Keene, who went on to become one of the cousins, the Hillbilly Cousins, either cousin Luke or whoever was first. Cousin Luke or Cousin Junior was Lanny Keene. And for a few months in early '84, Lanny Keene is a jobber on WWF television. But anyway, Sergeant Slaughter's taking on Lanny Keene. Terry Daniels is standing there with the flag. Iron Sheik comes out, starts berating Daniels, spitting on him. Daniels isn't moving. He's not blinking. Iron Sheik rams a knee into Daniels' midsection. He doubles over, but he held the flag up still. And so Sergeant Slaughter and Vince McMahon were very proud, and they pointed out that Terry Daniels never dropped the flag. No, indeed. Loved that. Remembered it like it was yesterday from childhood. Cowboy Bob Orton is showing up in the WWF in 1984, April 84. And it's very strange to see a extremely young Cowboy Bob Orton and his obvious resemblance to Randy Orton. Very, very young Bob Orton at this particular time. And the framework is being laid in Piper's Pit in April because Captain Lou starts mentioning Cyndi Lauper. They start because Captain Lou is in a few Cyndi Lauper videos. Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and actually Time After Time. And Cyndi Lauper is very popular at the time, and Captain Lou is taking credit for being her manager. And so he goes on Piper's Pit, and they're actually treating Cyndi Lauper just like, right? They don't know that she's going to come in and be a good guy, right? So, Piper's talking about how great she is, and Captain Lou says how great she is, and how Captain Lou led her to this point. And they start to lay that framework for what would have become, the MTV Rock and Wrestling Connection, WrestleMania, the war to settle the score, all that stuff that just blew them up nationwide. And so right in April of '84, they start to put it out there. And it's fun because you know what's coming. In May, and this is where we'll stop, May of 1984, more Captain Lou, Cyndi Lauper, Piper's Pit. At this point, Lou is promising to have Cyndi Lauper on the pit. Roddy Piper's super pumped up for this. The week comes, Roddy Piper comes out with spiked hair, and I think he put in like a couple of earrings because he wanted to look cool for Cyndi Lauper. So he came out with like real gelled up hair and announced Cyndi Lauper because Lou promised that she'd be there the next week. Captain Lou comes out and says, I don't know what happened. She's late. Her plane's late. So basically, Cyndi Lauper doesn't show and makes Roddy Piper and Captain Lou look bad. And so they're furious now at her. And it's amazing. And it continues into June. We get more stuff in June, so don't worry. So at this point in May, Roddy Piper's disappointed. Captain Lou's disappointed. How could she do this? I made her everything she is. She stands us up on the show. I promised that she'd be here. It's so awesome. Lanny Keene, I mentioned. Buzz Sawyer. Buzz Sawyer shows up in the WWF in May. Crazy Buzz Sawyer. What a true life, kind of a wild guy. Ended up dying of a drug overdose. Very coked up individual, allegedly. And man, oh man, he's got to be on something more than energy when the way he comes out, he's full of energy. He's pacing around the ring. He's hooting and hollering. Of course, he's managed by Lou Albano. And at the time, he was Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer. But the WWF had a Mad Dog Vachon, so they called him Bulldog Buzz Sawyer. And that was the only time he was called Bulldog Buzz Sawyer. because I guess Vince didn't want to confuse anybody, and they already had a Mad Dog. He's literally in the WWF about a month, and that's it. I don't know what that was all about. Really no competitive matches, nothing. He just did jobs or squashes on TV. Now, finally, May 26th, my birthday, May 26th, 1984, we get, so the previous episode I'm watching, I just watched it, and when they announced the feature match for next week, it was Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas defending the titles against Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch. And I tell you, I have not seen Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch on TV at all up to this point. I don't know where they are. I don't know where they're wrestling, but they were there as early as like February, and I never saw them. I don't know what show they were on. Remember, there's Championship Wrestling, which I have. There's All-Star Wrestling, which I don't have, and then there's Wrestling with the Chase, Wrestling at the Chase, which I don't have either. So maybe on those shows they were on. But lo and behold, May 26th, 1984, my birthday, Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch defeat Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas for the WWF Tag Team titles. And at this point, they still have those trophy-style red belts, or red strap belts. But very, very soon they're gonna change belts. And I think right away, as soon as we see Adonis and Murdoch for their next title defense, they have the new belts. And they're just like that classic, you'd recognize them, just classic looking tag team titles. May 29th, we have the debut of my favorite, well, Saturday Night's Main Event is my favorite, but my favorite WWF program, Tuesday Night Titans, TNT, debuts on May 29th, and it features the most classic skit where they go into the home of Dr. D. David Schultz, and he absolutely abuses his wife and children, his fake wife and children, of course. But he just hammers them. And I'm going to do a full review of the debut of TNT. I think it deserves its own show. So we're going to talk in depth about that. But May 29th, we've got the debut of TNT, my favorite show. And the one of the best feuds that put out the best matches, Greg Valentine and Tito Santana start to, again, go around the horn with major matches all throughout the house show circuit. Tito Santana defending his title against Greg Valentine. This results in a lot of fun stuff. We get some title switches back and forth. We have a broken knee, or an injured leg that Valentine hurts Santana during one of the title switches, and the classic interview from the hospital bed where Tito Santana's all drugged up and he's promising to come back, and at the very end he goes, "Arriba." He's so beat and so tired, but he gets in a "Arriba" before he passes out and goes to sleep. All right, that's that. That is the 1984, first half of 84 in review. We will do these monthly, and by monthly I mean as soon as I'm done watching June, I'll come out and talk about June. It won't take me an actual month. It'll probably take me a week, and then we'll come on and we'll talk about them month by month as the build to the national and eventual worldwide takeover begins. That's that. Thanks for hanging out. See you all next time. Good night now.